Today, we take a closer look at a lost chapter in boxing history, the 1920 showdown between Irish-American heavyweight Frank Moran and Britain's heavyweight champion Joe Beckett. In 1920, cinematography was still in the age of manually operated, hand-cranked motion picture cameras running early nitrate film stock. During this time, the Americans had success filming big prize fights in open-air daylight arenas. But as boxing grew to become evening, primetime indoor events, the lighting required and the film stock sensitivity needed wasn't always up to the task. The Europeans, however, had been making strides in filming prize fights at night under artificial lighting. And, unlike the Americans, who often restricted and discarded fight films after their theatrical runs, the Europeans have been diligent about preserving their recorded history. The Moran-Beckett film stands as an example of that legacy. In the history of boxing, there are many great fighters who never held a world title. They were the great contenders, the journeymen, the underdogs who helped define their eras. Among them was Frank Moran. Born in 1887, the Irish-American heavyweight fought internationally between 1908 and 1922. Moran's background stood apart from most fighters of his time. Before becoming a professional boxer, Moran studied dentistry at the University of Pittsburgh, where he also played college football. That experience, as both an amateur and later, briefly, as a professional football player, inspired Moran's rugged, aggressive boxing style. Moran's knockout record, and the overhand right he called Marianne, was impressive, but his poor defensive skills left him exposed to counters, making his career a mix of successes and setbacks. Moran struggled to reach the sport's upper echelon, losing to two top contenders, Gunboat Smith in 1912 and Luther McCarty a year later. Still, Moran distinguished himself historically in another way. He crossed the color line, fighting black opponents such as Black Fitzsimmons, George Kid Cotton, and even had the great Joe Jeanette working his corner in 1911, an uncommon public act of racial solidarity for the time. Then, in early 1914, came the opportunity of a lifetime. Moran was offered a chance to fight for the world heavyweight title against the legendary champion Jack Johnson. The bout was arranged by Irish-American promoter Dan McKettrick, who was staging fights in Paris at the time. McKettrick convinced Johnson that Moran was a safe, crowd-pleasing opponent, though privately McKettrick believed his man had a puncher's chance. On June 27, 1914, in Paris, Frank Moran went the full 20 rounds with Jack Johnson. Moran lost the decision, but the fight was closer than expected, elevating Moran's standing as a true contender. 2 years later, in 1916, Moran challenged Johnson's successor, Jess Willard, the new heavyweight champion. At 6'1", Moran was forced to contend with Willard's massive 6'6" frame, long reach, power, and stamina, the same attributes that had worn down Jack Johnson a year earlier. Despite 3-1 odds, Moran once again went the distance, losing on points, but proving that his courage and toughness were beyond question. After the Willard fight, Moran lost 7 of his next 13 bouts. Then, in 1920, Moran rebounded, campaigning in England with a series of wins that earned him a match with the British heavyweight champion Joe Beckett. For Moran, the fighting dentist, it was a remarkable late-career opportunity. One last chance to prove himself on the world stage. Born in 1892, Joe Beckett was a tough and very popular English heavyweight of the 1910s and early 1920s, winning the British heavyweight title in 1919. Moran and Beckett faced off before a capacity crowd in London at the Royal Albert Hall on December the 10th, 1920. Billed as the Great Fight, Moran enters the ring first. Beckett follows. George Carpentier, the world light heavyweight champion, straddles the ropes and greets the crowd. 7 months from this time, Carpentier will travel to the United States and challenge world heavyweight champion Jack Dempsey for the title. It will be boxing's first $1 million gate, catapulting the sport into the modern era. Referee Joe Palmer issues the instructions at ring center. At the bell, Moran takes the fight to Beckett, and the two engage on the inside. A London reporter wrote, "Each boxer started as if he meant to finish the business as quickly as possible, and terrific punches were dealt out on both sides." With less than a minute in, Moran receives the first in a series of warnings from the referee for holding and shoving with his forearm, a habit likely carried over from Moran's football days. Moran and Beckett are a contrast in styles. Beckett is a well-schooled fighter for the day. He makes good use of footwork, evading Moran's charges and finding angles for counterattacks. Moran is the bigger and stronger of the two, but he's unpolished, plodding forward, lunging, often missing and leaving himself open. But the American is well-conditioned, patient, aggressive, and seems unfazed by Beckett's punches. Beckett's strategy is to work in close, knowing that Moran needs room to throw his overhand rights. By staying busy on the inside, Beckett has some success, but he struggles against Moran's advantage in strength and size. Round 1 went to Beckett. As round 2 begins, Moran is again cautioned for holding. Beckett continues to rush inside, but Moran, in a change of strategy, throws a series of uppercuts, catching Beckett as he comes in. The fighting intensifies. The two trade in a close exchange. Once more, Moran is cautioned by the referee. Driving forward, Beckett appears to gain momentum. But Moran counters with a series of rights, followed by a smashing uppercut on the inside. Moran's corner jumps into the ring, piling on their fighter in celebration. A reporter for the New York Times summarized, "Beckett made a tremendous onslaught upon Moran, but the latter is fond of inboxing, and Beckett tried to beat him at that." Despite his loss, Beckett would go unbeaten for the next 2 years, until his final contest, losing by knockout to the great George Carpentier in 1923. As for Moran, the victory over Beckett would be his last as a professional prize fighter. He retired in 1922 at the age of 35. But Frank Moran had an illustrious second act.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm about to present to you Frank Moran.
He made his way into the motion picture industry, where he appeared from 1928 until 1957 in over 153 movies.
Into the valley of the shadow of adversity.
The shadow of the what?
The Valley of the Shadow of Adversity. It's what you call a paraphrase.
Alone and
Goes double for National Yellow Park.
Now, if you'd said Las Vegas, what do they do in Las Vegas?
Everything, Doctor. It's an education.
All right, I'll meet you in Las Vegas on or about...
Moran passed away at 80 years of age on December 14, 1967.